It's time for Coffee with the Chicken Ladies, a podcast for people who love chickens.
Hey everybody, and welcome. It's Chrisie&Holly from Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. We're here, and this is episode number 217 of our podcast, where we talk about everything chicken, family, fun, and
more chickens.
More chickens. We drink a ton of coffee. I'm talking a ton. But most importantly,
we hug chickens every day.
And we kiss them too, don't forget. We brew coffee from a little coffee roaster in Houston, Texas. Bright and early coffee. Holly Ann, what kind of coffee are we brewing today?
Delicious breakfast blend.
In the afternoon.
Stop.
It's delicious. Now, if you are not drinking breakfast blend by Bright and Early Coffee, you are missing out. We have a code for 15% off bagged coffee, and it's CWTCL 15. Holly, where should everybody go?
brighthandearlycoffee.com.
Now, if you use K-Cups, go get them on Amazon. They're there. And follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Are you ready to sip some of this delicious Bright and Early coffee in chat?
I am. But first, a word from our sponsor.
We have some exciting news to share from our sponsor, Grubbly Farms. They're here, new and improved, Grubbly's World Harvest.
I'm a longtime subscriber, and my flock love the healthy, nutritious treats, plus orders $40 and more ship free.
If you haven't heard, Grubbly's has a fantastic layer pellet and crumble feed. It's packed with plant and insect protein, perfect for those picky chickens and ducks.
Grubbly Farms makes food and treats for healthy pets and planet.
To support us and Grubbly Farms, use the link grubbly.co/coffee. Try it today. Brr! It's cold outside. It's cold.
It's so cold. It is so cold. I'm losing my mind.
I walk the dogs and I'm like, babies are not going back out right now. They can't.
I mean, when this episode drops, I mean, it's cold right now, but when this episode drops, we're going to be like in this historic cold spell. And one of the days, the temperature does not get above 14 Fahrenheit.
I know. They're comparing it to the Christmas a few years ago, like 2 years ago, where it went down. They're saying one day overnight or in the morning, it's going to be minus 15 wind chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That means my birds cannot come out. I'm not letting any of them out in that cold. And a couple of them are going to have to be in the garage.
That means mine are still in the garage, and it's a lot to transport 20 plus birds in and out constantly. So they're kind of in there, and they're taking turns having open garage privileges where they get to walk around and stretch their legs and come out of the pop-ups.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel so bad for them, but I would feel worse if they were in pain due to frostbite or other things on top. A little bit of boredom right now, we can get them through. But
they can deal with boredom. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, Nankins, especially, less than 2 pounds. They're in omelet coops, and those coops are big enough that I can put food and water in there for everyone.
Right.
That's where they're going to stay, in there with their heaters.
It's crazy. I kind of knew this was going to happen, though. It's been a weird weather pattern.
It is dark in the omelets, but don't worry. My amazing husband has some handy-dandy lanterns that light it up just fine.
That's a good idea. And the new Pros have the spots for the lights that you can get, I believe, through Omelet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you can light it up for them that way. That was my thing. I was like, it's dark during the day, but if you have a way to light it up, they'll be okay.
And the Nankins aren't even in the Pros. The Pro has standard-sized chickens in it in my place.
Yeah.
The Nankins are in just a standard cube. But one cozy coop heater, even in that bitter cold, it keeps my baby safe. And that's what I need.
Exactly. Now, I want to put a little disclaimer out there because we did do a little post with Little Man and his Neutrina vest. Now, that vest is the best. And I didn't mean to rhyme that, but it did. That vest is amazing. And he wears it when he goes out around town. And he wears it for photo ops.
Well,
and
the well-dressed rooster.
He is. And Neutrina, you know what? We love Neutrina food. We feed it. It's amazing. But I just don't want everybody thinking that that's the way to go all the time. That's just around town and for photo ops. So when you see it,
I mean, essentially, Neutrina sent those vests to us for a photo shoot.
Yeah,
and we did the photo shoot, and Little Man looks so good in his vest. He needs to style it when he goes out being a chicken ambassador.
When he goes to the brewery, he's got to wear it.
But
he's got to be dressed.
He does not wear that in the run or the coop or any place like that. And then it's strictly for fun.
He's all natural naked in those places. And on that note, if you're listening to our show and you're loving it, head on over to Apple Podcast and leave us a written review. It does amazing things for the growth of our show. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button because you never want to miss this fun. And guess what? They count them.
If you're looking for other ways to help support the show, you can tell a few chicken, duck, or goose-loving friends about us. You can share your favorite episodes on social media. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/coffee with the chicken ladies. Thank you to all of our wonderful patrons. The other thing you can do to help support the show is visit our website and our show notes, use our affiliate links and discount codes, and buy products from our sponsors.
Yay!
So, winter is coming.
It's better when Sean Bean says it.
Can you stay on topic for just a minute?
What topic?
Winter. Well, chickens, obviously. And igloo coops from Omelette.
Oh, yeah. You got to have an igloo for winter.
If you don't know igloos, they're engineered for extremes. Double insulated, waterproof, and stormproof.
They keep out any weather and all predators.
And you can just wipe them clean.
My girls and little man are so comfy in their Igloo Pro.
Mine too. Warm and dry all year round.
Winter is coming.
Be ready with an igloo.
Search Omelette. That's OMLET.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Do you like monthly subscriptions?
Does it have anything to do with chickens?
Of course.
Then, yeah. Let us take a minute to tell you about Chicken Love.
You get a monthly Chicken Lady tee, treats for your flock, and a keeper care card.
And did you know with every multi-month subscription, you get a free Chicken Love logo t-shirt?
Really?
Yeah.
It's $36 a month with free shipping.
What are you waiting for? Get off the nest and click already. That's chickenlove.com. That's chickenluv.com. Get your subscription today.
The Breed Spotlight is brought to you by Murray McMurray Hatchery, defining quality for generations. For over a century, Murray McMurray Hatchery has remained a trusted family-owned business working tirelessly to ensure our poultry meet the highest standards.
Whether you are an experienced enthusiast or just embarking on the journey, look to McMurray Hatchery for guaranteed quality, rare and heritage breeds, low minimums, and all the supplies you need to raise your flock. Request a free catalog today. One of my favorite chickens in the world. It's today's Breed Spotlight. Yeah. And enjoy a little bit of tea. Yeah.
Oh, Lord, because it's an English chicken. I got ya. Okay.
This week's Breed Spotlight is
The Orpington.
one of my favorites.
They're one of my favorites too. I really, really like them. I've never had like the classic buff Orpington, but I have the Jubilees. They're stunners, and I just love them.
I mean, I started with 4 buff Orpingtons that were really beautiful Orpingtons.
Very.
They were big. They were fluffy.
They were proper Orpingtons.
Then I got the lavender Orpingtons, and I got the Jubilee Orpingtons. And now I have Margot, the Orpington also from over at McMurray. And
she's a buff.
yeah, there's just something amazing about this chicken that makes you want to love them so much.
They are great. The Orpington is one of the best known breeds amongst chicken keepers, both old and new. They are a heritage breed success story, and they're a very good option for brand new chicken ladies and gents. Really good beginners chickens.
And people take advantage of that. They are used as beginner chickens. It's not just us saying it. So many beginners start with them.
They're so gentle. The Orpington spent some time on the Livestock Conservancy's conservation priority list, but they finally graduated in 2016, and they're in great shape. You can find yourself Orpingtons pretty easily.
Oh, yeah. And it's a good thing, too.
Orpingtons are a heavy breed of chicken originating in Kent, England. They were first introduced in 1886 in the black variety. They are dual purpose, though they are not at all top-notch layers.
Now, there's a lot of speculation out there about their laying ability, and a lot of people put them as top-notch, but anybody who has one is going to quickly understand they're not, and that's okay.
Right. They are respectable layers of brown eggs, but they are not good or great. And I know some of you who have young ones, sometimes the young ones will just pump out eggs and eggs and eggs. That is going to come to a screeching halt.
Yeah. After a year, you're going to see a drastic drop.
Though I do wonder if any of the feather sexable lines are better layers than.
It's hard to know.
Yeah.
Now, Margot, she is a very good layer. I will say that. Like,
she is from feather sexable lines.
She is. So she's already laying now, but she's not like, she's going to lay still like 3 eggs a week, 4 eggs a week.
She's not a leghorn. Yeah.
No, not at all.
We should probably call the Orpingtons triple purpose because they have always been very popular showbirds too. In fact, we've actually seen in a few sources, and I think there's something to this, that the early Orpingtons were better layers than their modern counterparts, but generations of breeding for the show ring have bred out much of their laying prowess.
That makes sense. 100% makes sense.
I think there's something to that, yeah. Orpingtons were accepted by the British Poultry Club early on and first appeared in the American Poultry Association Standard of Perfection in 1902 in the buff coloring.
The best color.
It is. 1905 for black and white.
And the blue was 1923.
Pretty early, yeah. Now, these are the 4 colors that you can show in the U.S. The black Orpington, like we said earlier, was the first variety. They were developed by William Cook of Orpington, Kent. Cook combined the black Langshan, the black Minorca, and Plymouth Rock chickens. The buff Orpington quickly followed the black, and that included, as foundation breeds, buff Cochins, golden spangled Hamburgs, and dark Dorkings.
It's funny that you say the black was the very first one because I feel like right now they're probably the least popular.
Certainly here in the U.S. I mean, and in some ways, the Australorp has replaced them almost.
I agree 100%. I feel like you don't even hear about the black Orpington as much as all the other colors, and they're the original. Beautiful. But you hear about an Australorp so much, so maybe that's what happened.
I mean, the Australorp is a better layer.
Well, I mean, they're bred to be.
Exactly. They're Australian utility Orpington. So one thing I thought about this as now that I have Dorkings, the Dorkings, even though they kind of are long and low, their actual body is very round, like that Orpington body.
Like the basketball body. That's what I call it.
It really is, yeah. Now, I read that beautiful white Orpingtons were a sport of the buff, but I haven't been able to substantiate that information.
I don't see them a lot either. You know where I remember seeing them? When we went to that swap.
The Maryland Poultry Swap.
And there was a lady who had her chickens in cribs. Do you remember that lady?
I did. I do remember that. And her Orpingtons were so profusely feathered, they almost looked like a chicken version of the Sebastopol goose.
She had those white Orpingtons in that little girl, the little baby crib.
Yeah.
That was a big crib, but it was a crib. And I remember just being in love when I saw the white Orpingtons, but they're not easy to find either.
No.
The black and the white really aren't. But you know what? You don't hear of a splash Orpington, really.
The only way you're going to get a splash Orpington is if someone's breeding for blues with blacks and whites, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we do have someplace you can get the whites easily. We'll tell you that at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Now, left on their own, the Orpington chicken may or may not have gone on to become the popular chicken that they are. But William Cook, their breeder, he was not going to leave that to chance.
He was like determined.
He was a go-getter. Now, Cook spent his early working or teenage years as a carriage driver. He was somewhere around 20 years old when he started breeding poultry. And by 1886, he was pretty satisfied with his Orpingtons, and he set up as a poultry business. He also started publishing a periodical called the Poultry Journal. He had worked for about 10 years on the Black Orpington. Then he started with the Buff and the others. But while he was doing this, he also developed the Orpington breed of duck, the Buff Orpington duck.
Exactly.
And he was apparently also breeding horses for a period of time. This is a very busy man.
He was very busy, man. He was like, what else can I do? Send them all over.
And he was not content with just breeding and showing his poultry. He never stopped marketing them. He showed and marketed them in England. He created the first Orpington Club. He eventually presented them at a poultry show at the Crystal Palace in London.
He needed a nap.
Seriously. I need a nap after just talking about this.
I know.
He didn't stop there either. He also had a line of poultry and horse medications that he developed, and he even created a bird hospital where people could bring their poultry in for care.
How could one person have so much energy? I don't know.
Again, I'm exhausted now. So they also sold feed, they sold vitamins, they sold delousing powder. coops for brooding and laying hens, poultry housing, and essentially what sounds like everything you would need to keep chickens.
Now, you got to keep in mind, this was the 1880s.
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy, thinking about how far back this was.
And the whole family was involved with the poultry, right? Most of his children had a hand in the business, including a few of them who went on to establish international branches. His oldest daughter was named Elizabeth Jane, and she ran the farm whenever her father was away from home. And after his death, she continued to manage the business for the rest of her life.
I mean, these people had chickens in their blood. It was
Apparently,
just running chicken.
One of the sons, Percy, set up a branch of Cook & Sons in New Jersey. Another ran a branch in South Africa. And at some point, Cook had taken some of his ducks and his black Orpingtons to Australia. And it was this trip that became the foundation for the Australorp breed in Australia.
And that breed is almost as popular as the Orpington themselves at this
Absolutely.
stage.
Yeah.
They're so popular.
They're amazing layers, especially if you want a heritage breed brown egg layer that's going to give you a lot.
I mean, every feed store you go into, they're going to have the Australorp.
Absolutely. With good reason. I mean, they're good chickens.
Yep.
So the Orpingtons had arrived in the U.S. by 1891, and they were actively being shown. In 1903, Cook packed up a bunch of his stock, and he brought them to the U.S. himself. Americans really appreciated the Orpingtons' excellent qualities. And guess which two colors the farmers and showers liked the best?
The buff and the white.
Yep. Buff and the white. And just the buzz about them really added to Cook's success. Now, in a really bizarre turn of events, Cook's wife, Jane, was killed in a gas explosion while he was out of the country.
That's awful.
It is. So he returned to the U.S. in 1904, and then he died the day after he got home.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that weird? That's really weird. His cause of death was attributed to emphysema. Who the heck knows? But R.I.P. William Cook.
Yeah, that's terrible. Now, let's look at the weight because these birds can be some big birdies, okay? They're not Jersey Giant big, but they're pretty big.
They're big, round, and lovely.
They're big basketball. And the Orpington roos weigh in around 10 pounds. That's nothing to sneeze at there.
That's a
10
big
pounds.
boy.
While the hens are coming in around 8. Now, like we were saying, feather breeding and all these other different things can contribute to weight and size and everything else.
Yeah, there's a line of Orpingtons that has been developed in the U.S. I'm not sure about other countries, but in the U.S., and hatcheries can do some feather sexing with them.
Right.
And we've heard it through the grapevine that those Orpingtons aren't quite as big as the traditional Orpingtons.
They're a little bit smaller. So your sizes may vary a little bit, but they're big. I mean, and they look even bigger with those beautiful feathers. They're gorgeous. All the feathering, the layers of the feathers, man. Now, also, the feathers make those legs appear short, but they're not. They're normal legs.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
But they're clean. Clean legs, no feathers on those legs.
Right.
Their back is a bit long and wide at the back, and their chest is deep. They have small heads in relation to their bodies, which makes them look even cuter.
Yeah.
They look so little. They're moderately sized straight combs. Now, I've seen them with all different size combs. Some can have really big ones. Some can flap over. Some can be really small. So take a look at them. They've got bright red faces. Their combs and wattles and earlobes are red, while their legs and feet are white.
Mm-hmm.
They are so pretty.
They're very pretty.
They're one of the most beautiful chickens I've ever seen. Now,
they're gorgeous. Like if you showed me an Orpington and you said this is the only chicken you could ever have, I'd be like, okay.
If you said to me, and I'm going to tell us why in a second, you have to only have Orpingtons for your rest of your life, I would be like, okay, on this breed, because now listen to this, the APA accepted colors. Let's go through the list. Because if you only had to have an Orpington, you could look like you had a well-diverse flock, even with just Orpingtons.
You could.
Okay? So let's go through the list of APA accepted colors. There's buff,
black,
white,
and the really stunning blue Orpington.
Right. And then the non-accepted but equally beautiful colors include the chocolate,
lavender,
the red,
my favorite, the diamond jubilee,
the cuckoo,
the lemon cuckoo,
the spangled,
silver laced,
gold laced,
partridge,
and the exquisite Isabella pattern.
They're stunning. Our friend Mark Agers over at Neutrina, he has silver laced Orpingtons, and they are stunning. stunning birds.
So you could have all Orpingtons and they look so different, all same body shape, but different feathering. So you could have a really diverse looking flock.
Yeah.
So here's where we're going to talk about egg laying, because everything I read out there tells everybody that the Orpingtons are these over the top layers. And with our experience, of over 30 years combined, they're not.
You
They're
can also
not.
add in Fiona's experience, because Fiona's been breeding buff Orpingtons for more than a decade. And she agrees with us 100%. They are not great layers.
Right. So they're going to give you about 3+ eggs as a young Orpington per week. That gives you, in the end, about 180 to 200 per year. As they get older, this is going to decrease by at least 1 to 2. So as they get older in life, they're going to be 2 or 1 a week. Now, this is perfect for a family.
Yeah.
And when I just had the 4 buff Orpingtons, I was still able to give eggs away. But it's not in excess. It's not like super layers like Leghorns, Rhode Island Reds, any Mediterranean. There's going to be about 3 a week when they're young, and then it's going to go down. Now, we talked about this a few weeks ago. They are the broody queens. They will go broody, and you can prepare for them to go broody. It's going to happen, man.
And that's going to cut into their egg numbers too.
That's what cuts majorly into their egg numbers, because when they go broody, they're not laying. And you have to be really careful with them because they're so large and they go broody in the heat. You have to be careful with watching them in a nest box.
I wonder if the feather sexable lines will be less broody.
Margot, majorly broody. That's all I'm saying.
That's staying true.
That stay true. That stay true. Now, they're one of our most favorite breeds.
They really are. They are the quintessential English chicken. They look absolutely perfect, ambling around your garden. And I say amble because they might run for snacks here and there, but generally this is a really chilled chicken.
It's like me running. You're not going to really want to watch me run. That's for sure.
You can't watch me run because I don't run.
I know. It's how we are. We walked a mile in middle school.
I forgot about that. We also did it in high school.
Oh, yeah.
I remember a couple of the boys waited at the end and they were like cheering us on and we were like, so slow. And I remember laying on the ground in the grass when we finished. Anyway, these are calm and friendly, beautiful chickens that are excellent for families. They are very good in a mixed flock as well.
They are known as the golden retriever of the chicken family for a reason. They're super friendly. They love people. They want to be around you, on you. They want to love you. This is one of the best beginner chickens ever.
They really are. And it's not like we were saying, you can, if you only ever had Orpingtons, that would be great. I mean, they are a triple purpose chicken. They are beautiful. They have a lot of history. They're an amazing heritage breed. You can have them as an experienced person. You can have kids taking care of them. I mean, there's nothing bad about them we can say, except they're extremely cold hardy, but don't do as well in the heat.
They do not. Now, they were the beginner chicken for myself. I started with them, and I attribute my love of chickens to those 4 Orpingtons.
Yeah.
And they started me down the path of really loving chickens for their personality, for their spirit, for all of these things. But I will say, the broodiness will test you. And you have to watch them in the heat because the large bodies and all the feathers, you got to keep them cool. No doubt.
In my experience, some of the bigger English breeds are just as uncomfortable in the heat as the Asiatics are.
Yeah.
Brahmacochin. They have a lot of similarities. And that could be because they were really bred and made into the birds they are now in the UK.
Exactly. And the environment is a little different there.
Right.
It's not as humid. It's not as cold. It's more of a calm climate. So
ours do well in both super heat and super cold. I mean, they don't like a cold wind. So we keep them, with wind breaks. If it's super duper cold, cozy coop heaters to guard their toes and their combs and wattles. And in the summertime, deep shade and fans. They do need a fan moving air through their coop in the summer.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Now, there is a United Orpington Club in the US and an Orpington Club of the UK.
Mm-hmm. They are widely available now, and they can be found very easily. It may take a little more detective work to find some of the more unusual color varieties, But, Google's your friend.
Definitely. Now, make sure you check out the beautiful buff, chocolate, and white lines at our favorite hatchery, McMurray Hatchery.
Yeah, McMurray has the buff chocolate and white. The one thing about the non-APA colored Orpingtons is that some of them are not very easy to sex as day olds.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to get them straight run. I think the chocolate straight run, McMurray doesn't carry this color, but I think in the past I've seen the reds as straight run.
Every time I've seen the mill carry any other thing besides lavender and buff, they're straight run, which is chocolate and red. They carried both and they're straight run.
The Jubilees were sexed, but some of them you just have to watch out. Yeah. So that is the Orpington. I mean, one of the most famous, and rightly so, modern chicken breeds.
And we're going there to see them in England this spring. Yeah!
I really am excited to go and see lots of chickens in their natural chickeny habitat.
Yes. Okay. So if you have the Buff Orpington, and I know there's a lot of you out there that have them, give us a story. Go to your stories, hit the mention button, put our name in, and it'll message us, and then we can reshare all your Orpingtons. We want to flood our feed, our stories with Orpingtons this week.
Have you seen Fiona and Hugh's 2 cockerels for this year?
Oh, yeah, they're awesome.
Just absolutely gorgeous boys.
Are you ready to dive into the fascinating world of backyard ducks? Look no further than Metzer Farms, your premier destination for top quality waterfowl. Whether you're a seasoned breeder or just starting out, Metzer Farms has everything you need to elevate your flock to the next level. And if you're passionate about call ducks, you're in for a treat.
Metzer Farms hatches a stunning variety of call ducks, meticulously bred for their miniature size, beauty, and calm temperament. From snowy whites to vibrant colors, each duck is a masterpiece waiting to grace your backyard. Visit MetzerFarms.com today to browse their extensive selection and start your journey into the wonderful world of waterfowl. Metzer Farms, where passion meets perfection.
If you're looking for a chicken coop that's produced in a planet-friendly, sustainable way, try Nestera.
Each coop is made from highly durable, 100% recycled plastic that keeps the equivalent of up to 2,000 shampoo bottles out of a landfill.
Their clean, modern design will fit into any garden or run area and comes with an industry-beating 25-year warranty and a range of handy accessories.
Simple to put together, so quick and easy to clean, and most importantly, red mite resistant. Your chickens will love it.
Quick shipping from Nestera.us.
For a 5% discount, use the affiliate link in our show notes, on our website, and on Instagram. Link in bio. Check them out today. Roosty's proudly sponsors Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. They're back with an innovative new product. You're going to want to check this out.
It's an extra large set, a 14-pound feeder in 3-gallon water with steep anti-roost lids. They're made of super durable material. You can either stand them on legs or hang them on brackets on your coop or fence. They're easy to remove and clean too. Plus, they look awesome.
We personally use Roosties and we're huge fans. So if you're raising chicks or keeping chickens, check out the Roosty store on Amazon or follow the link in our show notes. Speaking of Hugh, are we ready to move on to main topic? Yeah.
Our guest this week is Hugh Osborne. And I'm just going to tell you right now, yes, this is Fiona's husband. So we're going to have lots of fun with him.
That's what she said.
Hugh is often on the English Country Life videos. My husband loves your stuff, Hugh. So if you have not checked out English Country Life on YouTube, go do it for lots more Hugh and Fiona content.
Yes, we love Hugh. He's always in the background over there every time. Now, we've known Fiona and Hugh like 5 years now. It's crazy. Time flies. And this is the first time Hugh's been on the show. Long overdue.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I think I'll consider myself as Deputy Fiona for the day.
You're Perfect. Mr. Floof.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to start with the first question to Hugh, and that is, do you spoil those chickens? And what's some of your most favorite things about those beautiful Buff Orpingtons over there?
Well, I suppose I'm a bit different than Fiona because I'm the head rather than the heart, I think, when it comes to chickens. Mm-hmm. Actually, I chose the Buff Orpingtons to begin with. So for me, the Buff Orpington is it is the perfect smallholder chicken. So I'm the guy who sits there and goes, everything's got to pay its way, everything's got to have a place, we have a plan, we don't do this stuff. Emotion's fine and we care about animals, but ultimately this is something that provides for our needs of food and money and everything else. Now, when you think about Buff Orpington, it is a proper dual-purpose chicken, particularly the English strain. So it is a meat bird, is an egg-producing bird, and it is naturally broody and will breed its own replacements. And actually, when you look at that across the world of chickens, how many other true utility breeds are there that are naturally broody, that are perfect, that are bred for the English climate, that are incredibly friendly? I mean, the floofs are so chilled that we don't clip wings. They've got a 1 meter fence, and that to them is the equivalent of Annapurna. I'm not going to fly over anything that's a meter tall, a yard tall. That's far too high. So they're incredibly gentle, incredibly friendly. They're a recognized breed over here, so they sell really well. So any excess we breed sells incredibly well. They're a fabulous table bird. So all in all, they actually fit the needs of somebody. And of course, that is what they were bred for. Now, for me, we need to get back to that way of thinking. There is so much food waste in the world. There is so much low animal welfare in the world. And very recently, and I know you know all about Fiona's accidents, we had a thing where the head consultant in what we call A&E, which is like the emergency ward of the hospitals, while Fiona's lying on the stretcher with multiple fractures in her leg, she managed to sell some Buff Orpingtons to the consultant in A&E.
Of course.
And she came over, absolutely lovely lady, really, really good, with her daughter, and said to us, I would really like to hatch some Buff Orpingtons in my daughter's school. Because these kids literally never seen an egg hatch, and she had an incubator. And we went, yeah, absolutely. And I'll just give you some eggs to do that. And I mean, for me, that is, I would suspect that 99% of children these days have never put a meal on a table that came from where they live.
That's a startlingly terrible number.
Isn't it just, but I mean, honestly, even as adults, how many of us can say, I put a meal on the table and I produced it all?
Yeah,
exactly.
For me, that's why Buff Orpingtons, because you don't have to buy in extra eggs. You don't have to use incubators. They produce brilliant meat. They produce brilliant eggs, and then they reproduce themselves and do it all over again.
They are the queen of brood. They are queen broodies, and they want to be moms more than anything in the world. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And again, then you suddenly they hatch these chicks. They raise the chicks around other chickens. They raise the chicks around us. So the chicks literally from day one just run up to us and go, have you got treats? There's none of this kind of scaredness or sort of concern about being around people. They are complete, because not only were they handled by us from the time they were born, but so was their mother, so was their grandmother, so was their great-grandmother. And it's now sort of, they are just part of our flock, or we're just part of their flock.
I feel like their friendliness is definitely their fourth major attribute when you list all the things. And then I was thinking to myself, there is 4, because the friendliness and being able to co-live together with people so well is major, because they can coexist so well and nicely with people.
Absolutely. And when you go back, it's really interesting that they did that. They were bred that way because they weren't ever fed as a peasant's chicken in the UK. They just lived in the farmyard and they scratched up the grain and they were eating the worms and they were picking up the leaves of vegetables that had been spilled in the farmyard. And effectively, for the poorer people amongst us, they were free meat that provided for itself. But of course, to do that in amongst other animals and around about people, you don't want some flighty thing that's flying up and scaring the horses, quite literally. You want something that's relatively sort of calm in temperament. And it's important to remember that, this property right here, where I'm sat, we were still ploughing with horses here into 1950.
Wow.
In my lifetime, this property did not have mains electricity.
Oh, wow.
It didn't have mains anything, actually, till 1970.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you are extremely remote. I mean, there are definitely areas of the U.S. that are that remote, but where we are on the East Coast, we've been settled since the 1600s. You don't find properties like that here anymore.
I mean, it's quite funny to think that this cottage is actually older than the USA as a country.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, that's weird, isn't it, when you think of it like that? But
it's
I mean, this place is very, I won't say backward, and that's not what I mean, but our field, where the floofs live, in 1912, there was a dairymaid. This is a farmhouse. 1912, there was a dairymaid that lived here. She needed somewhere to live, and they put up what we would call a wriggly tin shack. I'm not quite sure. Corrugated iron, the sort of the metal tubes. Yeah.
Yes.
So 2-room corrugated iron shack that was in our field. And that was basically where the dairymaid lived. In 1936, they decided, I think they didn't have a dairymaid anymore, decided they didn't need the building. This is Lincolnshire for you. They picked the building up, okay, not that weird, put it on a flatbed, towed by a steam engine, right? The steam engine took it about a mile down the road, put it in another field where it became an agricultural workers' cottage.
Wow.
So and in this 2-room cottage, he raised 4 kids, right? It had nothing, so it didn't even have a pump inside, let alone a toilet. It was literally just a tin shack with a wooden range on it. Now, the reason I'm saying that to illustrate what it's like round here is he stopped living in that shack, which still had no main services, in 2001.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, even like whenever you guys are on Zoom, whenever Fiona's and the woodworking in your home is absolutely beautiful. It's stunning. I always like the cabinet behind you. People can't see it because they're just listening.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I'll tell you something actually, just as an interesting. I don't know if you can see that at all. But
yes.
Right. So that is where they used an apple tree instead of a beam.
That is cool.
And it's still got branches coming out of it and what have you.
So beautiful.
That is an amazing little detail.
You brain yourself walking through the doorways. The doorways are 5'3" high.
I would be great. You know what? I'm only 5'1", so it'd be perfect for me.
Built for the cottage. That's what it is.
It would be perfect for me. So
and there isn't, you get a window made for here. It's got to be made by a carpenter because there isn't a square wall in the place.
Yeah.
We don't even have foundations. The house just sits on mud.
Wow.
So a big tractor goes by, you feel it shake.
Oh, man.
Yeah, people say, aren't you frightened of it? And I'm like, well, we don't know how long the cottage has been here, but definitely since 1750. But
that's why we want
about 100 years longer.
That's why we want everybody to go check out English Country Life and your videos on YouTube to see this, because your house is so beautiful and everybody should take a look at your videos. I want to switch over a little bit to, you have built a lot of the coops, mostly all the coops that you've used. Yeah. And we want to talk a little bit about coop maintenance and the stuff that you do, because you are the master, from what we've heard, of coop maintenance and taking care of these structures.
Sure. I mean, the big thing for me with coops, well, there's a couple of things. I mean, what kills, and I'm talking wooden coops here, and we keep obviously all different types. Water kills coops. That's the first thing I will say. So if you're building or maintaining a coop, the very first thing, well, in fact, if you're going to buy a new wooden coop, the first thing I would say to anyone is get its feet off the floor. Because if it sits on wet mud, even on wet grass, that moisture is constantly being absorbed up into the wood, and it will begin to rot and it will begin to decay. In fact, it's another strange story, and I'll go down small stories, but in this country, they have things called refectory tables, which is where the big long tables where the monks used to dine and what have you. And most of them are incredibly low. And people think it's because people were small. It's not. It's because they sat on flagged floors, which were swilled out every day. And the feet have got smaller and smaller and smaller because they just rotted off over the years. So they just cut off the bottom. So these tables are now about 4 inches shorter than they were when they were built.
That's pretty cool. Instead of rebuilding the table, they just took the floor out. They're like, oh, we'll make room. We'll just sweep the bottom of the floor.
Just sawed off the bottom of the legs as they rotted. But coops do the same thing. So the big thing for me with coops and coop maintenance is, first things first, get them up off the floor. So, I mean, you don't need to do a lot. I think do you call them pavers? We call them paving slabs here, but just, concrete slabs. You don't need to lay them on concrete. You don't need to put them on sand. It's just, if you want to, just lay on a flat area, put a few pavers down, put your coop on that, get some up, and the water's got somewhere to drain away. That makes an enormous difference. And the other thing that'll do for you, I don't know if, again, the problems you have there, but the problems we have here is underneath coops is a warm area and generally dry. Right. And rats love warmth and dryness for digging. And we get, if you're not careful in the UK, you'll get rats come up underneath your coop.
Oh, yeah, not good.
No, so pavers, of course, knocks that on the head straight away. So as well as preserving the coop, it's actually making it a safer, better place for the chickens to be in. So I think that for me, that's point one. The second point is, if you get any rot, just get rid of it. Take that whole piece of wood out, Don't try and fill it, protect it, put wood hardener on it. It never really works. If you watch any professional carpenter on a door frame, if there's rot or anything like that, they'll just cut it out completely and replace that piece of wood.
Okay.
Now that goes to, if you make the coop right in the first place, that's an easy job to do.
Right.
If you don't, it isn't. So I'm going to go careful with the terms, but a lot of coops are made out of what's called tongue and groove, which is a bit like floorboards where they slot together.
Right.
Of course, the bottom one of those that's gone, you've got to take off all the ones above it, because otherwise you will just break the tongue when you replace the plank. So, and again, that comes back to what you replace it with. Over here, we've got what's called tannalized wood, pressure-treated wood.
Yes.
Yeah, in my opinion, if you make your coop, now, obviously, I guess in your areas, if you're in one of the dry desert areas, it's a different issue. But for here, the maintenance is about water, and I would say always use tannalized, pressure-treated wood. And the other one I see on all the cheap coops that's bought is and most of the cheap coops that are sold here come from China and various places and come flat. And honest to God, half of the fastenings, when you take them out of the box, are rusting before you take them out of the box. So these like cheapest forms of screws and nails and what have you. And I must admit, and again, don't know what it's like there, but here, if you go and buy like stainless steel screws as opposed to the normal cheap ones, they're probably 4 to 5 times the price.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
But worth every penny, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah, bite down on it. Just go and buy decent fastenings, because otherwise, I've had a coop that we bought when we first started, was dirt cheap, and within 2 years I must have replaced 2/3 of it.
Exactly
Huge false economy. I am, as time moves on, now that we've got 12 coops on the go at the moment, and I am increasingly a fan of the recycled plastic types, because I have to say with those, the absolute zero, and again there is an element of, you will look at that and then you'll look at a cheap imported Chinese wooden coop and think, well, the cheap imported Chinese wooden coop is half the price.
But you're going to be replacing everything anyway, even from the start.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you lose all that, what you save. I agree with you on that one. And how, with the waterproofing, just keeping it up off the ground can help tremendously? Or is there anything besides treated wood that you use on it that would be safe for the chickens, or just pressure treated wood?
I mean, pressure-treated wood is the place to start. You can certainly add to that, because years ago, pressure-treated wood was far more waterproof than it is now, and much more rot-resistant. Unfortunately, it was made that way because of the chemicals they use, which were absolutely hideous. And certainly in this country, part of those, when you see pressure-treated wood, is it green there a lot of the time? Does it have like a greenish tinge to it?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, part of that's dye now in this country. It used to be that colour because it was a combination of copper and arsenic that went into the rot proofing. And of course, you don't really want your livestock pecking away at things that have been treated with arsenic. Now, that's been banned over here for about 15, 20 years now, I think. So there's none of that in the supply chain. But they still kind of dye it a bit green to make it look like. But I mean, the reality is that the modern chemicals are much safer, but they're not as effective. So what that does mean, if you buy pressure treated, is not going to last as long. So I would advise people. Now, the only problem you get is if you use normal wood stain on that and weatherproofing, it doesn't stick. Because it's been pressure treated to stop water absorbing. If you use a water-based preventative on it, it doesn't absorb and it doesn't stick. And in the first group of rain, it all falls off. So you've got to get one that's designed for pressure-treated timber. So there are certain sort of preservatives out there that are actually designed to go on top. And they're usually oil-based rather than water-based. Definitely worth topping those up. Definitely.
Now, do you check your coops for drafts and things like that? Is there certain things that you can do to prevent those?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I would say with that is, of course, we don't want a coop to be airtight. And I think some people actually almost over-draft-proof their coops. And you need a good sort of amount of fresh air coming through. They're a relatively small space. The chickens are in there for 8-10 hours at a time. So I wouldn't get overly uptight about there being a small draft. But the way I look at it is, what you should have at the lowest level is your nest box. And slightly above your nest box is your perches. And the perches then actually mean they tend not to want to sleep in the nest boxes, which can be a problem because they'll foul the nest box.
Right.
And then for me, the ventilation you do have should be up above that. So effectively, you've got a cross breeze that's coming through your coop, but above the height the chicken will be perching at, so that they're not sat there in a howling gale. The other thing I try to do is always orient the coop so that whatever your prevailing wind is, you don't want the vent facing into the wind. You want it at sort of 90 degrees to the wind, because that way you've got fresh air coming through, but you haven't got rain being driven into the vent and dropping down on the chickens at night and all that kind of thing. So, yes, I mean, I would say once a year, and I usually do it in the height of summer, and people think that's slightly odd, but do a preventative maintenance to it. The first things to go will be the feet. The second things to go will be the floor, usually, because, of course, chickens are constantly putting droppings on the floor, which are both wet and slightly acidic, and that's going to start corroding the floors. I don't know whether you guys use them. I think removable floors are a complete waste of time in coops. I don't know whether you've...
I have not used it, but what we've used is epoxy, like that is treated on the wood so that it makes like really nice, so that it doesn't go through to the wood. It protects it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. The floors, the wooden coops we do have are Amish built, and they are built very well. And they also cost a lot, but they come with the epoxied floor. Now, this might be unique, but I think this could probably help. So my husband and I keep sheep, so we don't use pressure treated lumber because of the possibility of copper toxicity with the sheep.
Yeah.
So what we've run up against with some of the Amish coops is some rot around the actual doors. So the doors that, open and latch. So if we're having to replace some panels on there and we're not using pressure treated lumber, what's the best thing we can use on that wood to preserve it? The new wood.
Yeah. Do you have a brand called Cuprinol there? They may not exist, but that
it doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, it's so they do a product over here called Duck's Back, which is
Duck's Back.
as in water off a duck's back. Yeah, and it's basically guaranteed for 5 years. It is water based, and I came across it as a beekeeper because it's one of the few treatments that's actually absolutely, because of course bees being so scent sensitive and all the rest of it, you have to be incredibly careful what you put on beehives. And if you start putting oil-based paints on, that can really cause distress to bees, and they can even sort of swarm from the hive. But Cuprinol, being water-based, is so sort of low odour and all the rest of it. That's something that I would really recommend. Now, again, I don't know if it's available there, but it's a good water-based penetrative wood stain.
I'll check.
Nice.
I'll check and see if we have an alternative. I think that sounds great. I think it'll be something super useful.
You've given us so much useful information that, gosh, it's amazing. We want to change course a little bit now and ask you about something really fun that you do.
Go ahead.
Do you want to ask Holly, or you want me to?
Well, Fiona has talked to us so much over the years about your amazing winemaking skills.
Okay. I'll talk a bit more generally about it. I mean, for me, there is several reasons for winemaking in the UK. And I guess it's all very different. But over here, a decent bottle of wine now is probably £8 or £9. So what, $12 to $15, something like that.
Right.
Sort of, for a, not particularly special, but perfectly drinkable bottle of wine. What is terrifying is if you ever look into how much of that is spent on the wine. Now, that might sound weird, but in the UK, I would say if it was a £10 bottle of wine, the cost of the wine in the bottle is about £1.50.
Oh, jeez.
It's not very much, that's for sure.
Yep. And the rest of it is a big chunk of tax on alcohol here, really big chunk of tax on alcohol. There is obviously what the shops, the off licenses, the supermarkets, everything else, their markup on top of that. It's the cost of the bottle, there's the cost of the cork. And when you mound all of that up, the actual wine in the bottle is a tiny fraction of what you get. And it's quite interesting because I do say to people, if you move up from, say, a £10 bottle to a £12 bottle, you've probably doubled what was paid for the wine inside it because the tax is per bottle.
Right.
So actually, you can get quite a big step change by buying a slightly more expensive bottle of wine.
Okay.
The point I make to people is that's taxed on alcohol. So in the UK, again, what we can do here is buy a wine kit or a beer making kit from the same people who produce wine, but because it's not fermented, there's no tax on it. So to buy a kit that will make you 30 full bottles of wine, a very good quality wine, will cost about £45.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
So wine will cost you £10 a bottle. So £300 to buy it fermented, maybe a fifth of that to buy it in kit form and have to do a few simple steps yourself to produce the wine as an end result. And I actually often say to people, that's a great way to get started. Because once you get the kit, it comes with the instructions, you've got everything you need in a box. You make it, boom, and at the end of it, you've almost paid for all your equipment by the time you've done one fermentation run.
My favorite part would be smashing the fruit with my feet.
Oh, well, we try and discourage your feet in particular, Chrissy, but feet in general. But when you make strawberry wine, we do get at it with a potato masher and smash it up.
Okay.
Fruit wines generally, I think, are just absolutely incredible. And in fact, flower wines and various other sorts of things. And again, this comes back to this thing that I have. I think if you make a bottle of wine and age it for a year and go out with your kids and pick the blackberries or pick the strawberries or what have you, and spend a Sunday afternoon actually turning that into something delicious, and then let it ferment for 2 months on a windowsill, and then clear it and bottle it, you value although it costs you no money, you value what comes out at the end of it so much more than you would for something you just dropped a £10 note on a counter.
I agree with you 1,000,000% and love that. That is all about doing things yourself and having pride in them and loving them even more.
Well, that's the reason I
Absolutely.
keep sheep. I mean, off the sheep's back and to a garment. That's the reason I keep sheep and do all the things that I do. Yeah.
Okay, one example here, and I'm so passionate about this stuff. It's like, and I could honestly go on about it for months. We give the chickens small amounts of apple cider vinegar for gut health on occasions. So the apple cider vinegar that we give the chickens, we produce ourselves. And in fact, it's behind that door right there. So I grow the apple cider vinegar with mother of vinegar, and I feed it cider once a month, and then I can draw off the apple cider vinegar. So the apple cider vinegar for our chickens who live here comes from here.
Hugh, you are a man of many trades over there.
I love doing this stuff. It just drives me mad. Now, of course, the apple cider vinegar that we do here comes from cider that comes from our fruit trees that we press in the orchard under which the chickens live. So the chickens will actually fertilise the ground that the trees live on, which then produce the apples, which produces the cider, which produces the cider vinegar. But then when we got into planting the orchard, we sat there and looking at it and going, now, again, I don't know how it is there, but we grow heritage apples here, really good old varieties that actually taste of something, Yeah. And they're expensive to buy. I mean, you can spend like 30, 40 pounds on an apple tree here.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking at it going, that doesn't seem sensible. How hard can it be to produce your own apple trees? Now, the reality is you can't, I'm sure you know, but you can't grow an apple tree from a seed. Not
if you want consistent results.
Well, the reason is, of course, it's been pollinated by a different tree. So, of course, it isn't what will grow will then be a hybrid of that tree plus whatever pollinated it. And the other problem is that apple trees are naturally 35 foot tall. So if you let it grow, the fruit will be so far up in the air that you're never going to be able to pick it anyway. So we graft the apple trees onto rootstocks, which control the size of the tree.
Amazing.
And different rootstocks will give you trees of different heights. They're basically crabapple roots that you sort of graft the growing tree onto. Now, but by doing that, you're taking a piece of a tree and grafting it to a rootstock, and it's genetically pure. Do you have Granny Smith's apples there?
Oh, yeah. I have one in my yard. I have a Granny Smith tree.
They all come from one tree that grew in Granny Smith's garden. And they're all practically identical. And it's because twigs have been taken and grafted, and twigs from that tree and twigs from that tree. And they produce this entire strain of trees from a single tree that produce a very nice apple. So I looked into this and went, how hard can it be to graft your own trees? The reality is very easy. A sharp knife, some stretchy plastic, away you go. The tree that would cost you 40 quid cost you £2 to buy a rootstock.
You inadvertently hit on what is a running joke on this podcast, and that is my passion for apples and my apple trees. Yes.
Oh, right. Well,
it is.
Come over, take some apple trees home. I mean, I've got like hundreds of them. Literally,
if I thought I could get them through customs, oh, heavens, yes.
Do you graft?
I had to. The only thing I've ever done is a persimmon tree, and I had to regraft it after my geese had their way with it. So, and it took, and it's doing very well.
We're running.
I slightly have a vision of a goose having its way with an apple tree, but
we're running short on time. But Hugh, you have to come back on because you are a wealth. I'm talking a wealth of information on here. And we just love talking with you. And we need some strawberry wine. When we come over.
I never even got to the strawberry wine, did I?
Well, we're going to have to do that again.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
But I can. So in the show notes, anytime Fiona's on, I link English Country Life YouTube in the show notes. But I'm assuming you probably have videos for a lot of these things, for coop maintenance, for the winemaking. And I will throw a few of those in the show notes. And I'll tell you, if you're not a big YouTube user, English Country Life is a great place to start because your videos are immaculate and beautiful and really informative. I love them.
And you're going to love Hugh and Fiona so much. You already love Fiona. Now you're going to love Hugh now that we have Hugh on here. And you know what? You're going to have to come back on because I'm talking, you have so much information. You are a man of all trades. Let me say
I love
that.
this stuff. Thank you. I mean, it's just for me, the whole joy of this kind of self-sufficient life is you get to go down all the rabbit holes of interest. You know, It's crazy things, but we make our own soap and people are amazed by that. And I sit and go, 100 years ago, everybody made their own soap.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone made their own soap. Before we let you go, I have one final question. It's extremely important.
Of course.
What's your favorite apple?
There is.
Since we already know Buff Orpingtons are his favorite chicken.
Right?
I'm going to say Cornish aromatic. If you've never had a Cornish aromatic, the Cornish aromatics are heavily perfumed in the flesh. So when you bite into them, it gives off, I can only describe it as the smell of tulips.
Oh, wow.
It's semi-russety, so it has that slightly rougher skin.
I don't care about that. That's fine.
I quite like, actually. I
Right.
quite like
Russeting is good.
Yeah. I've actually got one I've just grafted, but I haven't fruited yet, which is an amazing, really ancient variety that a friend of mine sent me that starts as a cooker, but it lasts so long. So we keep them in an old chest of drawers.
Mm-hmm.
So we harvest all the apples, put them in an old chest of drawers, and this one will last all the way through to May of the following year.
Wow.
But as it ages, it sweetens. So it starts as a cooker when you pick it, and it's a dessert apple by the time they finish.
Wow.
I can't say it's my favourite because I haven't tried it yet, but that whole idea of that really intrigues me.
I don't know. Holly's going to have you come back and talk about apples.
Just
again.
do apples.
I could just see her. I could just see her excitement. She was like, she had a fire burning inside of her when you were like, oh my God, they're sweet and they're loud.
I'll do one for you, Chrissy, actually, just on the subject, which ties it in with a bow, is that I have a passion for trees. I adore trees in a maniacal way. So we have 54 varieties of trees here, including some that are just vanishingly rare. But there's one called the true service tree. And it's a member of the same family as Rowans and white beans and all these other family called the Sorbus family. And it grew here in Roman times, but it's now become extinct because of climate change. It basically can't pollinate itself. But I managed to import some of these trees. And as much as just to put them back into the countryside, the other reason for it is the Romans used to ferment the fruit of that tree and make a drink.
Ooh.
No one's tasted that for 2,000 years.
Well, you know what? I love my Romans. I love my Romans. Yeah.
These are your people,
Can you
Chrissy.
imagine being able to make a drink that no one's tried for over 1,000 years?
That's amazing.
Exactly. Well, we're going to leave you on that note, and we're going to have you back soon. Definitely, everybody check out English Country Life. We're going to say bye to Hugh, and we will talk to you later.
Perfect. Lovely to meet you both properly. And
Yes.
I hope to come back anytime.
Anytime. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Hugh. Okay. We just want to thank Hugh one more time for making his debut on Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. We were so thrilled to have him. Don't worry, Fiona's not going away.
But we needed to have Hugh on. Come on. He was awesome.
Yeah, because strawberry wine and everything else. Thank you, Hugh. We really appreciate it.
And he's going to make us some strawberry wine when we go to England this spring.
Oh, okay. Our friends at Good Eggs solved the age-old question of how should I wash my eggs?
They're chicken people just like us who created the original silicone egg scrubber.
Both Chrissy and I use their brush and natural enzyme wash every time.
It's a total game changer.
It makes cleaning eggs so much faster and easier. Plus, they have a lifetime guarantee.
Good Egg is a small family business right here in the U.S., and they donate 10% of all profit directly to folks affected by cancer.
Go check them out at goodeggstuff.co.
That's goodeggstuff.co. Tell them Chrisie&Holly sent you. Okay, so we're ready to move on to
cracking the eggs.
Cracking those eggs. Now, this week, we're doing
Stracciatella. Stracciatella is Italian egg drop soup. And I will tell you, this soup in general is getting me through this winter. Like, I've been making pot after pot after pot of soup.
I made a big double batch of chili with corn.
With corn.
With corn.
There's no corn in the Stracciatella, and it's really easy to make. It's perfect for cold weather. It's absolutely delicious. If you want to make it a little heartier, you can actually add pastina, little pasta. You can add
It looks like
orzo.
rice. Yeah.
Right. Orzo or ditalini or stellini or any of the little pasta shapes, just to give it some more body.
Okay, so let's go into the ingredients that you're going to need for this Italian egg drop soup. 6 cups of chicken or vegetable broth, 4 large eggs at room temperature, so not a ton of eggs. You should be able to get 4 at this point. 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of finely grated lemon zest, and that is optional.
But
4
delicious.
But it's good.
It's good.
4 ounces, it's 1 cup of finely grated parm cheese, that is. 5 to 6.
You're all fancy over there. Parm. You can't even say parmigiana. Parm. Chicken parm.
I'm the abbreviate lady. 5 to 6 hands. 5 to 6 hands? Don't put 5 or 6 hands in there, man. 5 to 6 handfuls of arugula, baby spinach, baby kale, or cress roughly chopped. Make sure you're rough with it.
Get rough with your greens. It doesn't need to. It doesn't need to be fancy. You want about a 2-quart pot or a saucepan. Put that over medium heat with the broth and bring the broth to a simmer. While that's coming to a simmer, you're going to whisk together the eggs and about 3/4 of a cup of the Parmesan cheese until it's well combined. Save that remaining 1/4 cup of Parmesan to sprinkle on the top when the soup is finished. You're going to stir the chopped arugula or greens into the simmering chicken broth and cook that until the greens are heated through and wilting. That takes about 5 minutes. And at this point, if you're using the lemon zest, go ahead and put it in. I love it. I love the brightness that it gives to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're going to slowly pour that egg mixture into the simmering soup. Gently stir it once or twice. You're going to let it simmer uncovered for a couple of minutes without stirring it until the eggs are set. And you'll see them because they start to float up on the top of the broth. So once they look cooked, you're just going to stir it a couple times to break up the egg, and then you're going to serve it with the rest of the cheese sprinkled on top. It is that simple.
It is that simple and that good. Now, try it. You might like it. Put a picture out there. We saw a picture, one of our listeners did Judy's breakfast bake, and it looked delicious out there. So we
Be delicious
love it when you
too.
I know. When you put your stuff up, we love to see it. Please do. Okay, so let's move on to retail therapy. Retail therapy. Yeah. Okay, so this week's retail therapy, we're going to redo something because we think it's timely and we think that there's a need for it.
Right.
And these are things that, again, we say it's your own preference, whether you do or you don't, where there's no judgment here, but we want to put some information out there if you do. We do, but if you don't, you don't. That's fine too, okay? So they're panel heaters. We're talking panel heaters here.
I got to tell you, I would have given my left arm for panel heaters about 20 years ago.
I think George Washington would have given his left arm for panel heaters.
I could just see Martha now, like, bring me every panel heater you have for my turkeys.
And I mean, we've talked about this before, that in those times, people who had a chicken that was very beloved to them or a really good egg layer came in and sat in front of the fireplace when it was cold.
Yeah.
They
would have been like wicker baskets. Yeah.
Yeah, they did protect their chickens against a cold. And if you want to, we're here to tell you there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
So the biggest myth is that your chickens, if they're in a heated space, are going to die if the power goes out, which is not true because physics doesn't work that way. Your coop does not go from like 80 degrees to -2. Coop heaters do not get hot enough. If you're using them in a reasonable way, like, you know, one igloo coop cube fits about one panel heater.
Right.
And generally what it's going to do in the cold is it's going to keep the temperature above freezing, but not way above.
Exactly. So like my chickens are in my garage. My garage is not heated. You can see your breath in my garage.
Yes, you can.
And in the pop-ups, there's a panel heater per pop-up. So what it does is it gives them a place to go to kind of get a little bit of warmth if they need it at that moment. And it brings the temperature just above freezing where the water will not freeze and they'll be at least a little bit more comfortable without wind, without anything else.
You can also put them on a thermostat. Like you can buy one of those little thermostat cubes.
Yeah.
And say it drops below 31, it can turn your heater on.
Exactly.
We think they're an amazing tool. I actually have them in every one of my coops for various reasons. They're very important if you have tiny chickens, elderly chickens, roos with big combs and wattles, things like that.
Polish, Houdans, any fancy chickens.
It does not affect your chicken's health. That's another myth, that a chicken that is in a heated space can't acclimate and that they lose their immune system and their disease resistance. This is not true. My oldest rooster and hen are 9, and they have been in heated spaces, and they are in great health.
There also is the thing that we want to put out there is there is zero clearance, and we've had people message us with questions. Yes, you can put them right in the shavings.
Yeah.
They don't get warm enough or hot enough to burn the shavings. They're a different type of heat. They're radiant heat. So, they are the safest thing that you can do that's electric. Now, with anything that's electric, there's always a possibility of anything. But this is the safest thing that you could do. So when you go out there, we were finding the price has gone up on these panel heaters over the years.
Yeah.
One of the best places right now to get them is Tractor Supply.
Yes. Tractor Supply carries their own brand, which is Producer's Pride. The average you're going to pay for panel heaters is about $50. So that's what I just paid. I grabbed one from Tractor Supply the other day, the Producer's Pride, and I know you have one. And one of the neat features is that it's convertible.
To a brooder plate. Yeah.
Right. So you can use it as a panel heater, or you can switch it when you get chicks in the spring. And then when your chicks get older, you can switch it back to a plate, and they can get near it when they get cold. So
exactly.
It's a really energy efficient and safe investment if you have birds that need extra heat.
The other place is Amazon. You can price check everything. You can kind of compare shop over there on Amazon and see what you can get. Now, the Cozy Coop heaters, we found that the switches sometimes do go bad.
That is the one thing about them that has been a problem, is that the switches wear out, and we've not found a good way to replace it or fix it.
Right. So go over there. Now, even Chewy carries a panel heater. Right now, they have one for $48.49, and you can usually get next day delivery with them or 2-day delivery. So those would be the best places. Now, there's also sweeter heaters, and you're like, what's a sweeter heater? Let's tell them.
So that's another radiant technology heater. They are made to be suspended, like from the ceiling or from the top of a brood or something like that, top of a coop. They are, again, a very, very safe option. They can heat a bigger area than usually the panel heaters can. They tend to be more expensive too, because they're bigger and they cover more area. So they tend to average around $100 and up.
Now, here's one at My Pet Chicken for $124. So, you can find it. Now, all you have to do is Google coop heaters.
Yeah.
And they all come up. Now, the radiant panel heaters are the ones that look like a computer monitor, kind of, if you were to think about it. Yeah. And those are the ones that we have, and they're very, very safe. My chickens will stand on top of them. I know yours do too.
My Nankin hens will sleep perched on top of the of the panel heater.
Now, what you don't want to use to heat your coop is a heat lamp.
I mean, I say this, there's no reason to use it unless you're desperate and that's all you can afford. And if that's the case, I would take my chickens out of the coop and put them someplace else with the heater above them. And you have to be meticulous about the cleanliness, dust, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Because they're an earlier technology. They do fall down sometimes. They do catch on fire. So they're risky. If your choice is lose your bantams to cold and use a heat lamp, you have to make that call for yourself. But if you do decide to use it, you have to be 100% meticulous about it.
Now, I found another heater. It's a panel heater, but folds. So it's like a bifold. And it's
that's
bigger.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's bigger, and it comes with a remote control, so you can control it. And it's on sale for $45 with a $5 coupon.
Who's the maker?
Let's see, who is this maker? Pet NF, and it's with a remote control. It's foldable, so it's bigger. They can kind of sit in between the two panels.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I've not seen that design before.
With that coupon, you can get that for $40. That's a great deal. I might be trying it to let everybody know how it goes. Now, so go get yourself a panel heater if you want it. Don't let anybody tell you you can't. Don't let bullies tell you can't, okay? Don't.
We don't listen to them.
No. Okay, so now that that's said, should we tell everybody what we're going to be talking about next week?
Next week we're spotlighting an extremely obscure but very beautiful chicken, the Shetland hen. Main topic, we were going to do this a couple weeks ago, but we bumped it, so we're bumping it back. So we're going to talk about best breeds for beginners, and we've had listeners ask us to explain how we choose our chickens, like why we choose our chickens the way we do. Cracking the eggs, the wonderful Amy Van Leuven from the Good Egg Company is joining us. She's going to bring us something healthy. We don't know yet, but it'll be amazing.
Yeah. Welcome back, Amy.
Retail therapy, we're going to do a revisit of one of our favorite kitchenware makers ever, Emma Bridgewater.
We cannot wait. Okay, so what should we tell everybody to do until next week?
Hug your chickens, ducks, and geese.
Every day and kiss them too. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to see more of us, please follow us on Instagram at Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. If you'd like to help us grow the podcast, please leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, please visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/coffeewiththechickenladies. Thanks for listening.